Have you ever wanted to, like, lay a curse on someone?
I've got a wee bit of a review, and I'm going to talk about a game that is currently free on the middle tier of PlayStation Plus. That's the extra game catalog. This game is Lost Records Bloomin' Rage Tape 1. This
I've
is
played some of this.
good. This is part 1 of a 2-part episodic game. Part 2 will be coming out in April. So, Lost Records is a narrative-focused adventure game in a similar vein to the original Life is Strange. Also, same developers. Don't Nod, kind of going back to their roots with this game. I hesitate to use the phrase return to form, but it definitely feels like that for them, you know. The gameplay basically consists of dialogue options and exploration with some very light puzzle solving. Like occasionally you might have to find a code for a padlock or, break it with a fire extinguisher, your choice. But there's also a video camera mechanic, which is one of the things I really like about the game. See, throughout the game you have this handheld camcorder that you can pull out at pretty much any point and record stuff around you. And what's really cool about it is that there's a lot of nuances surrounding that. Like, different characters will have different reactions at different times to you filming things. And if you point the camera at them, they will take notice of the fact they're being filmed and react to it as well. And that can change depending on the situation. I actually had someone at one point, they were like, this is not the time to be filming me, put the camera away. And I was like, oh shit, sorry. It even opened up a new dialogue option where I got to apologize.
Whoops.
This is also how collectibles work in this game. So every once in a while when you have the camera out, certain objects in the environment will have like this pink box outline around them, and if you get the right camera angle on those objects, a little pink circle will show up indicating that you can record that object as a memoir. And once you have found every object in a particular memoir group, it creates a little video that you can go into your inventory and watch, that has like narration over it and stuff. So anyways, the year is 1995, and you play as Swan, who is a sort of socially awkward, possibly autistic, not confirmed but heavily hinted at, dorky cat girl who's a little on the heavier side. And unfortunately, she's very used to being bullied and being an outcast as a result of this. So one day when she's being bullied by some older kids, these other kids around her age come and stand up for her, and then the four of them become good friends. And together they spend the rest of the summer hanging out, starting a band, and discovering a strange paranatural phenomena in the forest that will change their lives forever. Now fast forward 27 years, and they've all gone their separate ways and started new lives, but when one of them receives a mysterious package hinting that a stranger knows what happened between the four of them and the weird stuff in the forest, the old friends must now reconvene in the town where it all began as they reminisce about their lost childhood memories and try to piece together what really happened back in that summer of 95. So, regardless of the paranatural stuff, though, sometimes the game can be a little atmospherically creepy. Like there's a point where you have an option to play Bloody Mary and whether or not you keep going, for example, and it gets a little spooky, but it's not a horror game, not by any means. A paranatural thriller at most, but also at the same time a coming-of-age teen drama as well.
Okay.
I would equate it to like a non-horror Stephen King novel like Stand By Me. In fact, I would argue that this game in general is a gender-bent version of Stand By Me in a lot of ways.
Fair enough.
It also shares a lot of DNA with Yellow Jackets, the way it jumps back and forth between the past and the present, how something weird happened with the girls in the woods in the past, and now the dark secret's coming back to haunt them in the present, and someone who knows their secret is messing with them. And I also think the game knows that it's a heavily Stephen King inspired because it references other Stephen King stuff like It. Like at one point there was a jump scare with a cardboard cutout that looks like Pennywise, and there's a very important scene with a red balloon early on in the game.
Oh yeah.
So I wasn't sure whether or not I was actually going to review this until part 2 came out in April, but I had a chance to see both halves of the I wasn't sure if I was going to review the game or not until part 2 came out in April, and I had a chance to see both halves of the story. But part 1, in my opinion, is so good on its own that I had to give it some praise. Here's the thing, though. It's not going to be for everyone. If you're the kind of person that needs constant flashing lights and explosions and gunfire to stay invested in a game, then it's not for you. You know, because this is a game that's about the story first and foremost. The gameplay is honestly an afterthought. You know, it's a narrative game. It's a choose-your-own-adventure game, and those are more about the story than they are the gameplay every single time.
Oh, yeah.
You know, very Telltale-inspired. It took me about 8 hours to finish part 1, and it took about 3 of those 8 hours for the weird shit to start happening, so you gotta be patient, but I think the payoff is worth the setup. And your choices, they do have consequences in regards to, like, your relationship with the other characters, but not so much how the overall story pans out. So it is pretty on rails in that regard, but your choices more or less are about changing the journey leading to the destination, even though the destination will always be the same. You know?
Yeah.
If I had one piece of... if I can give anyone advice that plans on playing this, don't hit every dialogue option that pops up. Sometimes not saying anything at all is the best answer. Also, sometimes potential responses will pop up when other characters are still talking, and during these moments, my advice would be to be patient and not interrupt them. If you keep listening long enough, more dialogue options will pop up on top of the initial ones. So the more you listen to a character talk, you will have extra responses that you can give. So it's kind of realistic in that way, and those responses will start stacking on top of each other. But you can't wait too long because it's timed, and eventually they'll all disappear. So if you want to say something, you know. My other piece of advice, pull out your camera every opportunity you have and look around for things to record. A lot of the collectibles in the game are very easy to miss if you aren't constantly recording everything. And here's where it might get weird for some people. In the past, in 1995, when you're playing as Young Swan, the game is in third person until you pull out your camera, then it looks like a found footage movie, complete with like classic vintage filter and everything. It's so cool. The graphics are actually better when you're looking through the camera than they are when you're not, in my opinion.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, even more...
It is, yeah, it's pretty cool.
More photorealistic, yeah. But in the year 2022, in the present, when it jumps back to the present, the whole game is in first person. And so you don't get to see what adult Swan looks like. But I think there's a reason for that I won't get into because of spoilers that I think they might tackle in part 2. But I do think it directly relates to her identity issues and stuff like that. You do get to see what the other girls look like as adults, though, because you're talking directly to them. But I will say this, I'm glad I finished part 1 before fully judging it, because I feel like the way it ends, and I'm not going to spoil it, but the way part 1 ends is essential to the entire experience. Like, they stick the landing, even though it's a to be continued landing, they stick it in a way that guarantees I will be back for part 2. Because the way they ended this, I absolutely have to see what happens next. I can't leave it on that. I can't. So it's wild. So I feel like if you're gonna play this, be prepared to see it all the way through or don't play it at all, you know, because if you can't make it to the ending of part 1, then you're not getting the whole experience, and you won't be able to judge it fairly. You know, this is a game that requires you see the ending before you rate it, I think.
I have every intention on playing this thing the whole way through, part 1 and part 2.
I'm going to be on an island here. A lot of people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine, but I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. It's definitely not everyone's cup of tea. If you like Life is Strange style games and these like 90s Stephen King-esque weird paranatural stories that aren't quite horror but aren't quite not either, you know, then it'll be up your alley. But if you need a game that's more involved than walking around and interacting with things and choosing dialogue options, then you won't like it. You know, you'd be better off watching it on YouTube like a movie in that case. So
yeah, no, I can't wait to pick this game up again.
But yeah, I loved it. I actually want to do a second playthrough, make different options, see what they do. So yeah. So
It definitely sounds like the kind of game where I might not play it myself, but I love story stuff like that.
But with the pacing and stuff like that, I'm probably more likely to watch one of my favorite Let's Players play it.
Well, you can look forward to a full, like, no commentary playthrough of the game on one of my channels, because I am going to upload gameplay of it, because this one is a contender for my top 10 this year, and I tend to record everything I play now just in case they make the list, so that I have that footage ready, and this one is a strong contender, so I want to get the footage for it anyways. But, like, be prepared for that to be like a 6-hour video that you'll probably have to watch in segments. So
Nice.
I got to the part where they get to the package, but they haven't opened it yet.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. This clip was brought to you by The Overcast, the official podcast of Oversoul Gaming, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all your favorite podcast platforms.